Welcome CSC 235 to exercise 8. This is Bootstrap Template, and we're just going to explore a Bootstrap template. So we're going to download it rather than use the CDN. So we could have started with that, but I thought it'd be nice to go over this now just to wrap up our intro to Bootstrap. So what you're going to do for ex8 is go into Replit, and we could bring it in here, and you're going to create a new repel. And it's still going to be HTML, CSS, JS like we've been doing, and give it a name called 8 and just call it BS. You don't have to type out Bootstrap, and you could put dash template, and you could put your initials. And that's all you need to do, and just create your repel. And there it is. And you're going to delete these files. So you're going to go here to index and delete. And you're going to go to script and delete. And you're going to go to style.css and delete. And we're going to put some files in here. And you're going to do that. And hopefully you know how to unzip a file. On a Mac, it's pretty easy. On Windows, you have to use extract all. But where I'm going to go to is startbootstrap.com. Startbootstrap.com, because they have themes here and they have free themes. And we'll all use the same one so that I can ask you the same questions. But if you just scroll down here, you'll see a bunch of Bootstrap themes. And I'm going to use the one that's Portfolio. It's a free one. And just click on it to select it. And then it has free download. We're not going to upgrade to Pro or Edit and Build or anything. You're just going to download it. Now on mine, it went to a zip file into my downloads. Now on Windows, you'd have to extract all, and sometimes you could browse and select where you want to put it. I'm just going to leave it in my downloads right now. That's where it is. And on a Mac, if I click on it, it'll just unzip it. And again, on Windows, if you right click and extract all, you're able to browse where to put that. And if you're not familiar with doing that in Windows, you should be, but if you're not, just look up how to extract a zip file in Windows, on Windows 11, whatever operating system you have. And here's the unzipped file, so that's out of its zip archive that's here. So it's just a folder. Now, rather than putting the whole folder in Replit, we're just going to put these individual folders and files in there because that's what's typically in the main directory in Replit. So I'm going to keep this window open, and in Windows you'd have your floating window or Explorer window open. And I'm going to go back to Replit, and I'm just going to drag them in there. There's a folder called Assets, one called CSS, one called Index, and one called JSS. I'm going to highlight them all. You could do them one at a time. And remember, it's empty in here because we just deleted those folders. And I'm going to drag these in here. And it still says hello world, but once you get them in here, you'll see you'll have an index file. Now your CSS file is inside a CSS folder, and your JS file is inside a JS folder. So the only root file you have is index.html, and it's typical HTML that we were working with on our earlier Bootstrap with all our classes and all that kind of stuff. And you can move this over a little bit. Now if you run this, it's going to show you that portfolio template that's there, and you can see it's stacked where it has a nav bar, it has a kind of a main area here, kind of a showcase, and then it has a portfolio, and these are stacked right now, and we'll just take a look at that. The menu is in this little drop down right now, and again, that's because it's very narrow. Now I'm going to open this up in a new tab as well, and a couple things I just want you to be aware of. If you go back to Bootstrap or getbootstrap.com, and just be aware of the breakpoints. And this may be something you memorize or something you might be familiar with, or if you're not, just remember that anything over 1400 they call extra, extra large. And anything between 12 and 1400 is extra large. And anything between 992 and 1200 is large. And then 768 to 992 is medium, 576 to 768 is small, and then anything below 576 is considered extra small, which would be mobile. And remember, we're working mobile first. So when you go here and you inspect, you can do this after you open in a new window, you can inspect it. I like to go in this mode here down at the bottom that puts it in this kind of mobile mode. That way you can always see the widths here. And again, you can go down below 576. That's the mobile view, and you can see what happens here. It stacks all these images. It stacks everything in here. It changes the layout somewhat, so it's a little more of a vertical layout, obviously on a phone. But as you go above here, it shouldn't do a whole lot between 576. Let's see what it does between 576 and 768. It doesn't really do much until it gets to 768. Then it actually breaks these into two columns. Now, they're actually called 6. because remember there's 12 columns in Bootstrap by default, so they say this is 6, this is 6. So it's taking up 6 of the 12, 6 of the 12. And here you don't have to do anything because it starts there. But then as you get bigger, as you go over 992, I believe, you can see now it goes 4, 4, 4. So this is column 4. So that class would be 4. So it's taking up 4, 4, 4. Each column here that has its own column class is taking up 4 columns. So out of the 12, it's taking up 4. This is taking up 4. That's taking up 4. Same down here. So the layout changes a little bit as we're going larger. So now that we're in between 992 and 1200, we're in that kind of large range right now. So in the large range, it's going to 4. And you'll see a class called call large 4, which means when it gets to large, you're going to take up 4. And when it's at medium, it's going to take up 6. So that's how you learn that stuff a little bit. And looking through here, you kind of see what happens. Now, when it's at extra large, that's extra large, anything over 1400. And as you go down, you can see what happens. The margins get bigger on either side. As you get down more, eventually these buttons kind of disappear. You just have one menu button here that opens up, and then you have a drop down, which is typical for mobile or even on an iPad at that size. So we're going to look at some of this and we're going to explore this a little bit. So you're going to have everything here. Now you're going to have assets, which is basically an image folder. They also have a favicon here, and you could always click on this stuff to see what it is. It's that little globe thing. They have an avatar here, which is just an SVG. It's just a vector file of this guy's face that you could replace with your face. And then they even have portfolio stuff in here. So you could have images, pictures. They have cabin, cake, circus, game, safe. Again, it's a template. It's meant to replace this stuff with your own. So that's another way to learn Bootstrap, is to start with a template and just start replacing things in there. So just be aware of the structure that they have in here, that there's assets. Then inside there's images, and there's other assets in there. So to get to the images, you actually have to dig into Portfolio to get there. That's assets. And then CSS, they just have the CSS file in there. It's just styles.css. So this is all your Bootstrap CSS in here. And you could go through and see what the root is. Here's all the root colors. You're going to see root fonts. You're going to see root elements for things like body. This is basically the body setup here. You're going to see basic elements set up here. These are all the defaults that they're using in here, that Bootstrap is using for all the elements. And notice they use elements and classes called H6, H5, H4, H1, and so on. So they're using both element names and class names for that. I don't know if they do that with body. No, they don't with body. But they do that with the sizes here so that you could still use H1, H2, H3 as well. So you're seeing some of these. Here's H3, comma, dot H3. So the class H3 and the regular H3 element, they're giving the file size here, and there's a calculation figuring out how big it should be. And there's also a query in here for each one. So a lot going on here to explore. So it's nice to explore this a little bit. That's another way to learn Bootstrap just a little bit more. And I'm going to ask you some questions about this. But for the first part, I just want you to get this downloaded, and then I'm going to give you a little quiz where I'm going to ask you some things about it. So what I want you to do is set this up. And make sure you have that, and you're going to share that with me. And let me know if you have any problem. If you have any problem downloading it, I could have you fork this or something. If you have any problem extracting it, dragging it over, just let me know. But what you're going to do is you're going to look at this. You could go in inspect mode and check out some of these classes in here. You don't always have to view it this way, but if you go over some of these areas in here, like just for example, I'll go over this kind of column here, and sometimes if you want to get it, you could go onto this thing here. Now, let me see if I could get on the column itself. There's the column. Now, it's selected down here. Let me move this up, get my little double arrow there. See, this is what I'm talking about. You can see there's all these classes, and they say column MD6. That means MD6 at medium, it means they're going to take up 6 and 6 of the 12. Now, this is large right now, so right now it's showing 4, 4, 4, so it's doing column large 4. That's how these are set up in 3 columns right now. And notice that all these portfolio items, I think there's 6 altogether. Oh no, there's 6. Portfolio item 6, because they have comments here describing them. So they have 6 portfolio items there, and they're all set up the same way. So they all have the same class name so that they stack up nice. And remember, they're all in a container, so they're all set up so they can basically stack on top of each other when they're in mobile view. So everything is mobile first, and then they kind of work their way out. So that's why there's nothing that's saying like 12 or anything, because that's going to be the way it's going to start, and then it's going to move out to 6 and then 4. And again, there's MB, margin bottom 5. So you see margin bottom 5 on there, setting up margins below them. So that's kind of the stuff we're going to look at. We could look at this. We could look at the nav bar and see what's happening up there, check out some of the colors, check out the footer colors. And in this sense, instead of worrying about the CDN, we can actually look right at the style. So you can go down here and see what the footer style is. Now look how many lines of code here. I'm already at like 900 here, and I'm not even close to being down. So there's a lot of CSS here. If you go down to 11,000, you're going to see footer background color and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things going on here, but I'm not going to make you dig through 12,000 lines of code, but I want you to just kind of be aware of some of this stuff and to go through this, to actually look at the CSS from your side instead of trying to figure out what it is online and what the defaults are. Here you can actually look at it and you can actually make changes. So you can make changes and go up here and just refresh it as you do things, and you're not going to hurt anything here. So this will be our ex8. This will be our way to just kind of finish up with Bootstrap a little bit, just to kind of work a little hands-on, and then you could, customize this or whatever you want to do. If you ever want to go back and work more with any other templates, you can. I'm in the freelance one right now, but there's all kinds of free templates here. Some are pro templates, but that's a good way to learn Bootstrap as well if you want to dig into Bootstrap. But for ex8, I'm just going to have you download it, put it in here, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it so that you're looking through the code a little bit and you're getting more familiar with it. I don't expect you to learn Bootstrap in this course. That's not the intent. The intent is just to be familiar with Bootstrap. So through ex7 and this one, ex8, we're going to do that. So we're looking at a template in ex8. So coming up, I'll have some questions about this. So look for that in your coursework.